I want to welcome us once again to this session. We're going to be taking the next topic, which is strategic leadership. Strategic leadership is one of the topic under Module 2, which deals with effective and efficient leadership. When we talk about strategic leadership, what are we talking about? We're simply referring to how you can be effective and efficient as a leader. We're talking about your ability to optimize your results or to optimize your outcome. And I said here that strategic leadership is the path to optimizing your outcome or your result from your best rational input. You see, strategic leadership is not all about talk without doing. In fact, you are not strategic because you said you are going to do something. You are only strategic because you have actually done something. That is what makes strategic leadership to be different. Strategic leadership deals with your action as a leader, the actions you are taking as a leader that will have a direct impact or direct influence on your organization or on the society. That is what strategic leadership is. And there are two key words that I want you to embrace as we talk about strategic leadership. I want you to understand that strategic leadership deals with improvement of performance or results or outcome. It deals with improvement. So whatever you are doing that will improve the result you are getting is a strategy. If what you call your strategy is not improving your outcome or your performance or your results, then it is called a bad strategy because it's not improving you. Another word that is also very important is that your strategy is supposed to enhance your results. And if the strategy you have put in place is not enhancing your result or your outcome or your performance, then it is a bad strategy. So that is why strategic leadership is very, very important. And I'm sure after today, you will be more conscious about the decisions and the much more important, the actions that you take. And that is why we said is a path to optimizing your outcome or your result from your best rational inputs. It has to be rational and it has to be something that will bring about a change or improvement or enhance the result that you are getting. Now, let me start by asking this question. Why do bad strategy happen to smart people and to good organization? I know I've told you a bit how we can encounter a bad strategy. We can encounter a bad strategy when our actions does not improve the result or the outcome we are trying or we are seeking to get. If our action is not improving the result we are seeking to get, then it is a bad strategy. So why do bad strategy happen to smart people? So it's not only dumb people that can have bad strategy. You can be smart and still encounter bad strategy. So why do bad strategy happen to smart people and to good organization? Now, this is my answer. I believe with the whole of my heart that it is the failure to understand what on heart is actually going on, or you can say the inability to diagnose the actual problem. If you cannot discern what the problem is, it is most likely that the strategy you are going to implement is going to be a bad strategy. It's just like when you go to a doctor. You see, you think doctors are smart, but your doctor is only as smart as the kind of information you give to your doctor. If you don't give your doctor good information, your doctor is going to give you a wrong prescription. So if you want your doctor to do well, to treat you very well, you have to help your doctor by supplying the right information to him. You have to help your doctor by supplying the right information to him. And it is the information you give to your doctor that will now determine the kind of solution that he will prefer to you. And if you give the doctor a wrong information, then you can be sure that the solution is going to give to you is going to be very bad, because the doctor has not been able to discern what exactly is the problem. So there are two components of a good strategy all the time. Two components of a good strategy. Number one, there is the diagnosis component. You have to be able to diagnose what the problem is. You must be able to find out what actually is going wrong. If you can't find answer to that, it is most likely that your strategy is going to be a bad strategy. Number two component of a good strategy is that your input must be rational. It is about taking a rational steps. If you are just talking, developing policies, writing policies, and you are not carrying it out, you are not going to have a good strategy. Your outcome is not going to be improved. Your result is not going to be improved. So for you to be able to implement a good strategy, you need to understand what is going on by diagnosing what the problem is, and you also need to you also need to put in the right action, which is the rational steps or the rational input you are putting into the strategy. So why does strategy matters? Why does strategy matters? Now, according to Michael A. Roberto, it says strategy is all about understanding your competitive environment and then positioning yourself for success in that environment. Now, I think this is a very, very wonderful definition of a strategy. But after some time, and I looked at that definition, I suddenly began to see some loopholes in the definition. And I felt that the definition, according to Michael Roberto, is not capturing the whole essence of what a strategy is. And therefore, I have been able to come up with something I believe is a better definition of a strategy. And this is what I said. I said, strategy is understanding the activities of your organization and its competitive environment, and then positioning yourself by taking the right actions to succeed in that environment. Now, there are some key important words in that definition. Number one, you need to understand your activities. Number two, you need to understand the competitive environment which you belong. Number three, you need to position yourself And how do you do that? By taking the right actions. And then you can then expect to have an improvement, or you can then expect to optimize your outcome. I think that is a more comprehensive way to look at strategy. And Richard P. Rolbert also have this to say about strategy. He said, a strategy is a coherent mix of policy and action designed to surmount high-stake challenges. Some people think that strategy is having a policy in place. And say, this is what our policy says. Your policy may say one thing, but if you are not doing what your policy says, you are not implementing a strategy. Strategy is about putting those policies into action. That is what strategy is. And I think that is what Richard Rolbert is trying to say. So you are not just talking about policy alone. You are also talking about implementing those policies by actually acting on them. Now, there are three big questions to ask yourself, according to Brad Smith Marichio, in facilitating a transformational change through strategy. And these are the three questions to ask yourself. Number one, how do I align or mobilize your team? Or let me say it this way. How do you align and mobilize your team around a vision? That is very, very important as a leader, as a strategic leader. You are always thinking about how you can bring and mobilize your team to the vision of your organization. Then number two, how do you build a culture where innovation thrives? How do you build that culture? It is very, very important. You see, somebody said that if you have a strategy in place and your culture does not match your strategy, somebody said that your culture will always eat your strategy for dinner. Your culture will always swallow up your strategy. So you need to align, or you need to build your culture in such a way that it matches the strategy you are putting in place. You see, your culture in an organization or in a society is not what people say. It is what people are behaving. The way people are actually behaving is the real culture. People can say in our country, we don't tell lies. But in actual fact, what you are doing is that every day, everybody tells lies. That is the culture. You may be telling people that we don't tell lies, that is our culture, but your action is betraying what you are saying. So we will only believe what you are doing, not what you are saying. Then the third question to ask yourself to facilitate a transformational change through strategy is to ask yourself, how do you place a bet on today versus tomorrow? Certainly, there are some things you are doing today that you can still continue to do in the future. There are some things you are doing today that should be totally discarded. They are not needed in the future. So you need to be able to decide as a strategic leader, to be able to ask yourself, what are we still doing today in our society that is still relevant for tomorrow? Or what are we doing today that is no longer relevant for the future? You need to be able to ask those questions, and your honest answers So these questions are what will determine whether your strategy is going to be successful or not. So to implement a transformational change, you have to question everything. And I think somebody was mentioning that. We have to question the status quo. Things must not remain the way they are. We have to question it. We have to contend with the status quo. We have to break from the norms. If anything is not working, there is no point trying to polish it. It is not working. What we need to do in such a situation is to discard it and implement a different strategy. So, we are going to talk about what strategy is all about. If I were to ask you what is strategy, or if you were to ask me what is strategy, I would like to answer you in this simple way by saying that strategy is simply about making choices. That is what strategy is, because strategy is all about actions, and you need to make a choice to be able to have an action in place. So that is what strategy is. But the problem with making choices is that your choices can either be bad or good. So when you have bad choices, what will you have? You will have bad strategy. When you have good choices, what will you have? You will have good strategies. So strategy is not a mission statement. You need to know that. Some people think that strategy is a mission statement, that this is the mission statement of our organization. That is not what strategy is. It is not a mission statement. Strategy is not your organization objectives or the vision of your organization. Those are not strategies. Strategies are sets of actions that are proofs of our choices. Strategies are set of actions that are proofs of our choices. And there are three choices to make when plotting your strategic move. The choice number one to make is, what will you do as an organization? You need to constantly ask yourself, what am I going to do, or what am I doing as an organization? You need to constantly ask yourself that question. Number two, what will you not do? You see, strategy is not always about what I am going to do. It is also about what you are not going to do, what you are going to stop doing. It's also a strategy. What you are going to do and what you are not going to continue to do is a strategy. And you need to make that choice, and you need to make it very fast. Another strategic move, and another choice you need to make as you plot your strategic move is to ask yourself, how will you create advantage over the competition? That is very, very important, because when you do something and when people see that that thing is good, people will naturally copy you. That is normal. But it is now left for you as a strategic leader to now be a little bit above your competitor by doing something different that your competitor does not know about, or that your competitor cannot do. You need to be able to figure that out. What you can do differently that your competitor will not be able to match or will not be able to do. You need to be able to figure that as soon as possible. And this is what I believe. I believe that as a leader, this is what you should be spending the whole day pondering about every day of your life. you should spend your days as a leader, or your entire day as a leader, pondering on these three questions. What will I do? Or what are we going to do as an organization? What are we not going to do as an organization? And how are we going to create an advantage over our competition? You need to keep thinking, pondering about that every day of your life. Now, let's talk about the value proposition of a good strategy. When we talk about value proposition of a good strategy, we are simply talking about the unique selling points of a good strategy. And I have been able to identify 5 of such unique selling points of a good strategy. The number one, or the first unique selling point of a good strategy, is that you must be clear with your vision. You must be clear with what? With your vision. A good strategy must identify the actual goal or vision it's set to achieve. If you are not clear in your mind about the vision you want to achieve, there is no way you are going to implement a good strategy. Number two unique selling point of a good strategy is that you must understand your competitive edge. What makes you superior to your competitor? You must understand it. A good strategy must identify its competitive advantage. For those of us who did economics in secondary school or even at the university level, we are taught about how different countries focus on producing certain products where they have competitive advantage. So you also, as a strategic leader, you also need to practice that in your organization. You need to learn how to identify where you are comparatively advantageous than your competitor, and then position yourself in that area. Another unique selling point, which is number 3 of a good strategy, is that as a strategic leader, you must have what I call strategic game plan. Now, I love soccer so much, even though I don't watch soccer again like I used to do many years ago, but I still love soccer. Now, the reason why I love soccer is that sometimes you can have a very weak team, but if you have a superior game plan, you can win a very talented team. And we see that happen all the time in the game of soccer. You can see a team that is in the relegation zone, but because in that particular match they have a superior strategic game plan, they are able to even beat the team that is number 1 on the league table. That is how important a game plan is. Don't run your organization or wherever place you find yourself. Don't run that organization without a game plan. You must have a game plan. A good strategy must identify the best game plan to adopt to get the best possible results. You must not embark on any assignment without having a game plan. Another unique selling point of a good strategy, which is number 4, is that a good strategy requires you possessing a technical skill. A technical skill. Now, a good strategy must identify its own capability to get the job done. You must understand what you are superior at, your technicality, which nobody else possesses. You must understand it, and then you must be able to put it to use for your own advantage. You must Know what you are capable of doing and what your competitors are not capable of doing. And then you focus on that capability that you have to be able to produce a superior result. Another unique selling point of a good strategy to get the best possible results. You must not embark on any assignment without having a game plan. Another unique selling point of a good strategy, which is number 4, is that a good strategy requires you possessing a technical skill. A technical skill. Now, a good strategy must identify its own capability to get the job done. You must understand what you are superior at, your technicality, which nobody else possesses. You must understand it, and then you must be able to put it to use for your own advantage. You must know what you are capable of doing and what your competitors are not capable of doing. And then you focus on that capability that you have to be able to produce a superior result. Another unique selling point of a good strategy is that a good strategy, you must have efficient and effective leadership and management team in place. Now, if you want to have a good strategy in place, the starting point of having that good strategy is by first of all having an efficient and effective leadership and management team in place, because it will take people to implement these strategies. And if your leadership and management team are not so effective, they are not so efficient, it will negatively impact the strategy you want to put in place. So a good strategy must be executed by top and dependable leadership and management team. One of the most important functions of a leader is the strategic allocation of resources. You want to allocate the effective use of your time. You want to allocate the effective use of your people. You want to allocate the effective use of money in the organization. You want to allocate the effective use of machine within the organization. These are very, very important. And you need a leadership team or a management team that is effective and efficient to be able to utilize these resources. Now, there is no way we can talk about strategy without carrying out what I call performance measurements. Because strategy is about an action that you are taking. And then if you are taking an action and you are not evaluating the actions you are taking, there is no way the strategy will be effective in the long run. So for your strategy to be effective in the long run, you need to build into your strategy what I call performance measurement. And what does performance measurement does? It is to evaluate the strategy you are implementing to be sure that you are actually doing the right thing at that particular point in time. It is to ensure that you are doing the right thing at that particular point in time. So one of the key strategic questions a leader needs to ask himself is, how are we doing as an organization? And asking yourself that question, what are you simply doing? You are simply putting in place your performance measurement. And I said this is why performance measurement is so critical in the deployment of your strategy as a leader. When you ask yourself, how am I doing as an organization? What are you doing? Or what are you trying to do? You are trying to evaluate your performance to be sure that your strategy is going to produce the desired result. I'm sure you've heard people say, what gets measured gets done. That is very correct. That is very true. If you don't measure it, it cannot be done properly. And I'm sure you've also heard people say, if you cannot measure it, you cannot control it. That is also very, very correct. Whatever you are not evaluating, whatever you are not measuring, is not going to be dependable, or you are not going to be able to depend on it for a long time. So you need to measure your performance each time and every time by asking yourself, how am I doing in this task that has been committed to my hand? So for a performance measurement to be effective, it must reflect on three things. Number one, it must ask, what are we trying to accomplish? That is one question you must ask yourself. What are we trying to accomplish? The inability to find an answer to this question will affect your strategy at the end of the day. So you must constantly ask yourself, what are we trying to accomplish as an organization? Another thing you need to reflect on as you implement performance measurement is to ask the outcome you are seeking. What outcome are we seeking in this organization? What is the outcome we are trying to seek? What kind of result are we trying to get? So if you don't know what you are trying to get, then there is no way you can measure whether your strategy is good or not. But when you know what you are trying to get, then it will help you to know through performance measurement to know if that strategy is actually good or not. The third thing to reflect on as you implement performance measurement is to ask yourself, what behavior do I need from my people to achieve our organizational goals? What behaviors do I need from my people to achieve our organizational goals? And that is simply talking about the organizational culture. And I think I mentioned that earlier on. You see, it is one thing to say that this is what we want to be the culture of our organization. But the reality of it is not what you have put down. Your real culture is the behavior that the people are exhibiting in the organization. That is the real culture of the organization. So you really want to focus on the behaviors of the people. Is the behavior of the people promoting is it promoting the end result of your organization, or is it undermining the end result of your organization? You need to be able to ask yourself those critical questions. Now, we need to ask ourselves, how do I become a strategic leader? And I believe this is the ultimate goal of this session. How do I become a strategic leader? I would say that if you want to become a strategic leader, you must understand that you must not be just a go-to leader for everyone in your organization. In other words, you must not see yourself or conceive yourself as a busy leader, so that this one comes to you and asks you questions, this one comes to you and asks you questions. Everybody is coming to you for everything in the organization. That is not the way to become a strategic leader. You cannot afford to be a go-to person for everyone. You must strive to become a strategic leader. And how do you become a strategic leader? You must become a strategic leader by spending time creating a game plan or a winning path for your organization by optimizing outcome through a winning edge. And I'm going to tell you the process you are going to take to be able to achieve this. Now, somebody is saying, do I need to isolate myself as a leader to be strategic? That is not what we are trying to say here. What we are trying to say is that for you to be a strategic leader, you need to be able to spend your time on what is important. You need to prioritize the things that you do in your organization and what should take the number one priority among all the things you want to do in an organization is that as a leader, as a strategic leader, your number one business is spending time creating game plans, creating a winning path for your organization. That is your number one task. Your task is not to be buying diesel or to buy computer or to buy fuel in the car or to buy car or to buy what was it called, stationaries in the organization. That is not your duty as a leader or as a strategic leader. You want to spend your time on what is important. And what is important? Spending your time creating a game plan for your organization. Now, for you to be able to do this effectively, I said you have to do the following. You have to take time to visualize your destination and the goal you want to accomplish. Number two, you have to practice strength-based leadership by fitting people's talent to actual job placement. By fitting people's talent to actual job placement. You are matching people with the right work that they are capable of doing. So you are not putting a round peg in a square hole. You are matching people with their strengths. That is your responsibility as a strategic leader. So, and then you begin to model, just like somebody said, leading by example. You need to model servant leadership for your team and demonstrate to them that you desire the success of everyone. You need to model servant leadership. Leadership is not lording it over people. It is to be an example to them in everything. Number four, you need to spend time in the future rather than being consumed in the day-to-day activity of your organization. That is where you need to spend your time. Spend your time in the future. Even though the future has not arrived, be there before it arrives. Spend your time thinking about the future of your organization. That is your role as a strategic leader. Then number five, you need to acknowledge your team's efforts, but only reward results. This is one powerful lesson that was reinforced to me by a great leader I worked with when I was in Nigeria. I was a bishop chaplain and for 6.5 years, and I worked with this very powerful man of God, and he will always say this, and I have come to appreciate this after he kept saying it. He said, it's not that I ignore people when they put in effort into a particular assignment. He said, I don't ignore people. I do acknowledge their effort. But for the fact that I'm acknowledging their effort does not mean I am going to reward that effort, because the effort is not producing results. So I'm only going to reward people whose effort has been able to produce results. And he kept saying that until I actually understood what he meant. And I'm saying this to you, that for you to be a strategic leader, you cannot afford to be rewarding people for doing nothing, even if they think they are doing something. You only need to reward those people who are really producing results. And this is one principle, personally, that I have adopted into my own life. And for you to be a strategic leader, it is one principle that I will encourage you to imbibe. Acknowledge your team's effort, but only reward results. That is very, very fundamental. Now, how do we practice strategic stop? Now, strategic stop is a concept that was popularized by Clinton O. Longanecker. And what are we saying when we talk about practicing strategic stop? What we are simply saying is that sometimes when you go through life, you need to slow down. You need to slow down. You need to take a break. You need to back up and look at what you have done and ask yourself certain questions if you are still moving in the right direction. That is what the practice of strategic stop is all about. When the workplace gets crazy, it is imperative that we slow down and exercise strategic stop. And what is strategic stop? Strategic stop is the process of slowing down and becoming more intentional and more mindful in the way you approach your work and life. This is a strategic backup or reverse from the implementation of a bad idea. You see, what strategic stop does for you is to help you to reassess or reevaluate your action, to be able to tell yourself the truth if you are actually moving in the wrong direction or if you are moving in the right direction. When you are able to implement strategic stop in the right way, it will prevent you from making a bad decision, which invariably will stop you from implementing a bad strategy. Now, for you to be able to practice this strategic stop, the acronym is, number one, you have to sit quietly. That is the S. Sit quietly. We are saying you have to slow down. Number two, you have to think about what you have to think about what you really need to accomplish. So you are sitting down quietly and then pondering on what you really need to accomplish. Number three, you have to organize yourself to place top priority on results that matters. We've said this over and over again, but this is now taking a more conscious effort to really assess the situation as it is. And number four, you are now doing what I call performance validation based on your priority system. Now you want to validate your performance by actually focusing on your priority. What is it that is number one? That is the first thing in your priority list. So you want to validate your performance by actually ensuring that you are doing what is number one in your priority list. Now, a strategic stop requires that you have a monthly, quarterly, or semi-annual strategic planning retreat with yourself to think through and answer the following critically important questions. Now, a strategic stop can be practiced in a day. It can be practiced weekly. It can be practiced monthly. It can be practiced quarterly. It can be practiced biannually. It can be practiced annually, depending on how flexible your time are. So it is really, really important for us to really take a step backward and look at situation and really reassess the whole thing as it is before we continue to go in that direction that we are going. Now, these are some of the critical, important questions we need to ask ourselves as we implement strategic stop. What specific result do I need to deliver to be successful? You need to ask yourself that question. What specific activities and practice do I need to engage in to deliver desired results? These are very, very crucial as well. Then you need to ask yourself, am I currently investing my time on the activities that deliver the results that we need? That is very, very important. Now, if you look at this strategic leadership as a whole, you will discover that it provides you the opportunity to be reflective as a leader. So you are not just taking action without really taking a moment to step back and reflect on your actions. It gives you the opportunity to reflect on what you have done or what you are doing, so that you don't continue to make mistake or you don't continue to persist in error. Strategic stop is an opportunity for you as a leader to think through all the activities of your organization before they are implemented. Now, there are other more valuable questions we can ask ourselves about strategic stop. Strategic stop questions to ask ourselves. The only way to improve performance is with careful thoughts, planning, and follow through. Here are some strategic stop questions to ask yourself regularly. Number one, am I working? Are my working relationships where they need to be to deliver superior performance and results? Are my working relationships where they need to be to deliver superior performance and results? Number two, is there a talent or skill I need to be working on to improve my performance? Number three, is there a problem that is getting in the way of my performance that I need to fix? Number four, how will I measure and monitor my performance to ensure that I stay on track? Those are the 4 questions you need to ask yourself as you try to implement strategic stop. Now, like I said, if you want to practice what I call daily strategic stop, these are the things you can also do to implement daily strategic stop in your life. This stop sign can also be adopted in our daily schedule, plan, or activities. And how do you do it? You sit, think for 15 minutes, organize in such a way around your activities that you are following a performance script. And how do you follow a performance script? If you are practicing a daily stop, there are about 5 or 6 points that we need to note as we follow our performance script in the practice of our daily stop. Number one, you need to identify specific results and activities you must accomplish. Number two, you need to realistically estimate amount of time needed to complete each activity. Number three, you need to determine whom you will need to include to accomplish each activity. Number 4, you need to determine what activities you can take off your list. I said at the beginning that strategy is not about what you are going to do, it is also about what you are not going to do. And I think that is what that is saying. Number 5, you need to prioritize remaining items and write a plan of action for the day. And number 6, you need to take 5 minutes halfway through your day to review and make adjustments to your plan of action. Now, as I conclude in this lesson, I'd like to say in a nutshell that mission is why you exist as an organization. Vision is what it looks like when you achieve success. But strategies are the specific actions you are taking to get you to your destination.